Okay. Okay, so welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining our ITSM webinar for JSM. My name is Rachel O'Neill, and I am a pre-sales solution engineer with Valiantys, as well as the ITSM lead for pre-sales. What that means is if you are a customer of ours, then I walk you through all kinds of technical and scoping conversations, give live demonstrations on any Atlassian tool that you'd like to see, and then we also prepare your statement of work, gather all of the requirements for that, and then walk you through offer presentations. I'm an Atlassian certified expert with certifications in both Jira software as well as Jira Service Management. It's nice to meet you all, or nice to see some old faces and old friends. If you're interested in knowing more about our professional services, please don't hesitate to drop me a line, an email, and I'll be happy to discuss some of our offering here. So what we're here to do today is to talk mainly about two separate areas, two areas that are separated within the tool, but really need to be used in conjunction with each other. And that would be incident management and also the operations piece. We'll also be going through some automation for both, and we'll be talking about asset management in general as well. We'll have about 45 minutes of content and then some time for questions afterwards. So when it comes to service management and incident management, what I personally think of service management, I think something is wrong because I'm not sure about your companies, but in general, I don't usually go to a help desk because everything is wonderful and right. Wouldn't that be nice if that were the case? But usually you go to a help desk, at least I do, because something is wrong and I need help with that thing that is wrong. So in today's webinar, we're going to be talking about break fix. The nice thing about living in 2025, though, is we have these really nice tools to utilize. Back in, let's say, the year 0 BC, you had to write something down on a piece of papyrus or something like that. Even earlier than that, you had to carve it on a stone. So if your local baker sold you a bad loaf of bread, all you could do was spend the next several days crunching into that rock saying, "Don't trust the quarter baker." But now you can go to a service management portal and a help desk to get all kinds of information and knowledge about what's going on, to request services and help with very little effort, hopefully. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. It should be sharing right now, I think. Make sure. Do this one more time because it doesn't look like it was sharing. And then we'll dig in here. Okay, and we believe we are sharing, so let's get this on the road. Okay, so what we're going to start out with first, before we dig into incidents, is also a feature that we really haven't covered too much in previous webinars, and it's something that's really important that I think most of our clients or users of JSM really should be utilizing as much as possible, and that's the virtual agent. So in previous webinars, we went through what a help desk is, and that's kind of what we're looking at right here. So this happens to be a portal, or not, from a user perspective, and when I say user, I mean an unlicensed user, someone who needs help, who's going to come to your help desk to request those services. This happens to be the individual portal, the operations portal. These are now renamed from projects in JSM to spaces, and you may see that rolling out soon. It's going to be kind of a speed roll over the next few weeks and months as to whether or not it's going to change within your particular instance. But within every portal, you have the option to use your virtual service agent. Virtual service agents can be utilized within the portals themselves, or they can also be used within Slack or Teams. And I highly recommend that you utilize these as much as possible. So we're going to just take a look at a very simple, what we call intent, or a script, if you will, to take a look at what some of the different things we can do within it. So other than, let's say, utilizing your knowledge base, you can utilize a chat with a virtual service agent. A virtual service agent can give you quite a bit of information about any number of items. It can lead you to a specific request type. It can lead you to a knowledge base article if, as a user, you didn't choose to type in help in that search bar in the main help desk. It can also give you just upcoming information as well. It can walk you through every field of a request type if you would like. I don't particularly recommend that, because if you were to create an intent where you're gathering values for each field, sometimes they may not have a value to choose. Sometimes they may not know which one to choose. So I prefer that when someone is looking for a specific request type or form, that you lead them to that form itself whenever possible. So we're going to take a look at that example right now. So I'm going to type in the word down and see what pops up here. So the first thing we can see is that there is a, hi, I'm your virtual service agent. I'm here to help with your questions or requests. Just letting the user know that they are now part of this conversation. And then we see another box pop up. So this is where we get into the intent or the scripted piece of this. And everything that you see here can be bespoke to your needs and bespoke to that intent itself. So this says, am I looking for a report a system issue? And indeed I am. So I'm going to go ahead and click on yes. If I were to click on no, it would close the conversation, or I can also add additional steps there. And I'm going to show you what that looked like in just a moment. But in this case, it said, thank you for contacting the operations help desk. Again, you can rewrite this however you like. And then it says, do you need to report a system issue? Because it's now giving me that choice because of this keyword at the very top here. This keyword is what got me to the report a system issue virtual agent intent. And then when I clicked on yes, I now get these options. So here I'm going to say, yes, I do need to report a system issue. I'm going to click on yes. So here there are a number of different things that you can add into your script for your user. You can add the link to the actual form itself, which I'll show in just a second. Or you can also add a link to a knowledge base article. So let's say, for example, this report a system issue happened to be a really complex form. Instead of just sending them directly to that link for the request type, what you can do is have two different responses here, where you have a link first where the actual request type happens to live. And then you could also say, by the way, you might want to take a look at this knowledge base article before you actually get into that particular request type, because it could give them more information about the kind of request type they're going to be filling out, all the different fields that are part of that request type, and etc. And giving your users as much information as possible is really going to be important so that they can fill the right form out the first time, and so that they have some help in guiding them what they're filling out. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and just right click and open this up in a new tab. But before we go to that tab, there's also down here, we see how would you rate this your support experience here. So I can get some metrics on how our customers and clients and users, internal or external, think about this particular virtual agent intent. Like, did it help you find what you needed, etc. So in this case, I'll just say very good because I found what I was looking for. And now it's closed this conversation. One thing to note is you get a certain amount of these. I believe it's still 1,000 per month for premium, where it comes free with the tool itself. And then after that, you're going to pay, I believe it's anywhere from 4 to 5 cents, and it scales down in price from there every month. And that, I believe, is still the case for both premium and enterprise, but I'll check on enterprise just to make sure. Now, once I'm done with this, I can either start a new conversation here, or I can just go to the links that I was looking for. And again, you could have 2 or 3 links here, so I can save these or open these in new tabs, or I can just keep this tab open so I can always get back to my conversation. And not only within the operations portal, or whichever portal or portals you're using your virtual agent in, you're also going to want to set up your Slack or Teams help channels. So you can set up actual channels that are for different kinds of ITSM categories, specific grouping of forms. You can also set up agent channels so that they can respond back and forth with agents within Slack or Teams. It really will help you to build that trust relationship with your agent population and your user base. It can also help impart even more additional information when they're talking to those agents as well. So it can keep them within the same UIs that they're used to if they don't choose to use the portal, and still get them help when they need to. So let's take a look at what that link shows. So if I were to click on that link, which I did in this tab here, now we get to this report a system issue request type. This, again, all of these request types will track back to one of the 4 main categorical work items within your certain project, or now renamed as space within JSM. And you can do a lot of things with all of these different request types. So you're going to have these required fields here. Again, you can add many, many more fields here, including your asset fields for actual objects, service catalog, hardware, software, anything that you want, licensing, etc. We're not going to fill this form out because I think we've seen that previous webinars, but once I'm done filling this form out, then I would be able to then see within my list of requests. In this case, we can see here. So I have my list of requests. In this case, it's everything, although I can also do this filter by created by me as well. So now from a user perspective, I'm done with the virtual agent from the portal perspective. We're not going to look at Slack or Teams today. I might cover that during our Willy Wonka webinar in November. Highly encourage you to sign up for that as well, and we'll put in a link for that later on. We also offer training in Atlassian Intelligence because the virtual agent does utilize some AI. There are some templates that are available that are pretty generic as well. And let's actually take a look at how we now program one of these intents. So I'm going to get out of the request piece and then go into here. So Atlassian now has the concept of Studio, where we're going to be managing things like virtual agents and other resources within the tool, as opposed to just the previous separate screens that it used to show. And here, if I'm in the IT operations service project settings area, and you can find that just by going to your main project and clicking on the three little dots right next to it, that will get you to this larger area where you can really do all of the administrative tasks and configuration for your specific project or workspace. Let's go into Manage Studio. We'll take a look at the intent that I created a little bit ago. Okay, so now that we're in our IT operations studio area, there are a couple things that we can see. We can see the overview of this. We can see the different channels that are available for IT operations. We can also see this dashboard here with our total conversations, conversations that were assisted, that were resolved. We can also see our customer satisfaction score here. And we can also get reporting on this as well. Really, every field and every selection within these forms is a metric that can be reported on. Okay, let's go into the actual intent. And I'll just show you very quickly how that was created. So here we can see that there are something that I had created called a critical incident. So I'm going to go into this. Okay. And now that I'm here, now that we can see this very simple intent that I had programmed, it's really, really easy to create this. It's all plug and play. It's all just typing out. There's no code needed for any of this. And you can easily create quite a few intents all by yourself. We're happy to help as well, of course. One thing to note, I really start with training for all of our new intents. We add a list of keywords here. So we can see that even though I don't have the word down specifically by itself, as long as it's part of a phrase that I use for this virtual intent, it's going to pick that up. And this will learn over time as well. If you have quite a few different intents, you may have overlapping words there. Some of that is going to be just a manual review so that you don't have the same exact phrases in every single intent that you have. But you may have something like help or system even down in multiple different virtual agent conversations. But this is really where you start. You can also add singular words or phrases. I'm going to cancel out of this or just not save it and go to flow. So once your training phrases are set up, then you're going to go into your actual script and start putting in the different choices and messages that there are. And you easily can add one here just by going like that. You can offer choices here. You can send a specific message. You can then start asking for information as well. So you can use a virtual agent intent so that you initially start based on those keywords, but you can ask for more information to whittle that down even more. And now with virtual agents, you can do quite a bit of additional background activity, such as send web requests. You can even change request types and fields from these intents. You can also run automation rules as well. So let's say maybe somebody is looking for a certain piece of hardware. Maybe you want the virtual agent to tell them what models are available to them. So you can create an automation rule that says, look up this user, then let's say look up a profile that is tied to this user or reference to this user in assets, and then they can then spit out the list of these are the models that you have available. And then also in that next choice or that next message that you're going to send them, you can say, now that you know the models that you have access to, here is the service request, here is the request type or form to fill out to get access to that hardware. So there's quite a lot of information you can impart to a user utilizing a virtual agent if desired. And then down here, I just want to show what the choices look like. So again, this is really simple to configure, even if you're not an admin. You can also add additional choices here if you don't want just 2 of them. Seriously, just so many different options here, especially now that we can do things like send web requests and utilize automation in here as well. You can also test these intents first, so you don't need to make them live right from the jump. You can definitely, and I recommend that you do test these as much as you can, just so that you get an idea of what it's going to look like. Okay. Then once you're done, you just save your changes and then you're done, or you can go ahead and discard as well. I like to do screenshots of what I've done just to make sure that it doesn't look just like everything else or similar virtual agent intents. But again, you can save them and then you can just leave them in test if you want to keep it as a draft so that it's not live on your site. And there are also the settings area too. So this is going to give you a description of that intent. This is all going to be internal except for the display name and that confirmation question as well. Okay. So we're going to close this right now, and we're going to move on and we're going to talk to the meat of this webinar, which is going to be incidents and operations. Okay, so within JSM, we have the concept of break fix and incident. Incidents can be ingested in a number of different ways through the operations piece, which we're going to talk about quite a bit in just a minute. And I highly recommend that you utilize alerts within operations so that you can ingest those alerts and create incidents from that. Or you can also ingest incidents through email. That is my least recommended format because you would have to use lots of automation and a very specific automation rule with specific narrative when inside it to make sure that a true incident is created. My preference is that you ingest true incidents through the portal themselves. So they are reported by a user or they can be created automatically because of an incoming alert. We'll talk about that in just a second. So let's just take a look at the incidents because I want to talk about something really interesting, which is the playbooks. So in previous webinars, I think we've kind of talked about how, just very quickly, on the left, you're going to have your main navigation panel here for all of your projects that you've favorited or starred. You can get to your project settings through these little 3 dots here. And then you can also see things like the summary for that particular IT operations project or space. And you can also see the queues, views, service requests, and then everything else is below this. One thing to note, though, for operations, there are a couple of different ways to get into operations. One is through the operations area that's available within your particular workspace or portal. And then you can also get to operations at the very bottom here too. This is where you're going to go to actually configure operations within the tool itself. If I were to click on just operations here, I'm just going to be able to see things, but I won't be able to make any edits or configuration work. And I'll explain what operations means in just a minute. So let's say that this was created in the portal. Also, I can do things like view this request directly in the portal. And then I can also do things at the top here, like investigate root causes, as well as create subtasks and even find resources. There are a couple of new features that I don't think we've discussed yet that I want to go through. And one of them is the playbooks. So with all of our incident management, we can see that there are now really 4 new areas here, including incident resolution with the ops guide. This is through Rovo. We'll take a look at that in just a minute as well. Changes on any affected services and asset objects. This is really important to check, especially for your agents. But one of the things that I think is the most important here, other than related resources, are the playbook features. And we're still getting into this, so there will be more of this during the Willy Wonka webinar as well in November. But these are game changers, in my opinion. So previous to playbooks, you used to have knowledge base articles, and you still have access to knowledge base articles. However, playbooks are now embedded directly into this particular work item. So I don't have to go searching as an agent for separate knowledge base articles to help me walk through this. You can still utilize both, certainly. However, if you have specific incidents or service requests or change requests that have a certain amount of steps or specific executable steps, I highly encourage you to start playing around with the playbook feature. This is going to give you exactly what this says: step-by-step guidance and automated rules to resolve this particular work item faster. So again, instead of having to go through, let's say, 7 or 8 different related articles that might have the word billing in it, because this particular incident is due to billing being down, now I can just check the playbook and not have to worry about knowledge base articles if I don't have the time or the inclination to do so. So what is a playbook? Again, it's a step-by-step guide, and it can give you a couple of different things. Give you every single step that an agent would need to do to resolve this particular incident or to get in touch with the people who can resolve this incident. And you can do that in a number of ways. So playbooks are made of two main items: instructional steps that don't actually have any automation or any other executable action tied to it, or an actual automation. So you can do things like run logs. You can run any automation rule from here. I certainly suggest that you utilize an automation rule that is pertinent to this incident. But things like, I want to escalate this to another team because let's say it might be a major incident, which is also a really nice function and feature of incident management. A major incident feature means that if this is clicked either manually or flipped automatically due to an automation rule, let's say an automation rule finds a critical service like building, and instead of waiting for an actual agent to mark this as major, it's going to do this right away. So you can make automation rules that make incidents that are P0 or P1 into major incidents right away. When you do this, this is going to bypass all of any current escalation or routing rules. A typical escalation or routing rule might go in the following manner. When an incident comes in, everybody who's on call for this particular team that's assigned to it, we're going to talk about teams in just a second as well. Anything that comes in, everybody on call gets an alert. After 5 minutes, if that alert or incident is not acknowledged, then the next people who are available or on that team get a notification. And then after 10 minutes and nobody has acknowledged it, then everybody on that team and possibly other teams will then get notifications that someone needs to start working on these items. So very much take advantage of the major incident functionality whenever possible. But let's say this isn't a major incident, and let's say it's a P3. And let's say for this particular P3 incident, we know that there are a certain amount of steps that we have to complete. Again, instead of going to that knowledge base article and having to flip back and forth from it, you can just do those steps within the same UI here. And the nice thing about these different steps is every time you do them, number one, you can mark it done. So you as the agent can see that this has been completed. You'll also get that nice little success banner up there. But you can also, as a project admin or someone who's responsible for reporting on the activities of our agents, you can actually check the execution log. So I can see that I have now clicked this as marked done. So for the most part, if you're setting up these playbooks for these different incidents and categories of work items, you're not going to be done. This workflow will not be in the completed status or resolved status until all of these steps are executed and completed. So playbooks can be for a number of things. They can work really well for HR onboarding as well, but also certainly incident status. So things like, I need to escalate this to a major incident team. I need to reassign this to a different team. You can certainly do that on your own through creating the different responders or who the assignee is, but being able to utilize that with either automation or an instructional step in the playbook will again help your agents really keep track of everything that they've done in the system, that they don't have to utilize a knowledge base article, and they don't have to go down here and look within the history area either. So that's important, a really important feature and pretty slick in my opinion. I fully expect most of our clients to be utilizing this for most of their work items going forward. And I'm starting to price these out within our statements of work as well. Really nice feature add here for incident management. Also, you can do things like have an instructional step to notify stakeholders. One thing that I don't think we've discussed previously either is, what is a stakeholder? Within JSM, you have most of the people within JSM are marked in one of two ways. They're either an unlicensed user or a licensed user. For unlicensed user that still need to be notified about this particular incident, whether they be on the development team or upper management, project admins, whoever that might be, notifying stakeholders is the way to do that. So you can send them information, either defaulted email templates or email templates that you create specifically to let people who do not have a license know that something is going on, other than just sending them, then just putting in a comment that everyone would see. Because perhaps the person who reported this particular incident doesn't actually happen to be part of that stakeholder group, and therefore they don't need to know the same information that you are imparting to that actual stakeholder group. So within the collaborative area here in the comments that we can leave, we can add these internal notes for agents and licensed users only. We can respond directly to a customer who is certainly an unlicensed agent or an unlicensed user typically. Although occasionally you can have a combination of both. You can be both an agent and a user, and then also the stakeholder piece as well. There's also another part to this, which is collaboration or the collaborator role in Jira software. So Atlassian has made it really easy to not buy more licenses than you need for JSM, especially in the context of service requests and incidents. So in this case, if this incident was created, I can then use either a manually triggered automation rule, or an automation rule can happen automatically based on, again, the type of severity of the incident or the affected services or assets that it does affect within the actual incident itself, by creating, let's say, a bug ticket in a Jira software project. At that point, then a developer may have some questions, but they don't want to have to go to, number one, you don't want to have to license them because they already have your Jira software licenses or other tools. And then the second piece is you don't want to have to make them go to the portal and be named as a request participant on that particular incident, because then if they start to put in comments or questions within the comment area of that ticket, then everyone will see that. And they may not need to solely communicate with the user or the reporter of that incident. They might just want to talk to a stakeholder group or an actual agent. So in that case, utilizing the collaborator role will be really useful for that. So if they already have Jira software licenses, then they can utilize the collaborator role to also be a part of this incident in its resolution, to ask questions if perhaps there is a bug that they need to fix, or if there is a new feature that is going to be created because of this particular incident. Okay, one other thing to note before we move on to the teams and operations piece to incident management is when it comes to when you're done with this incident is PIRs, or post-incident reviews. And there's none here right now because I want to create one together so you can see what I'm talking about. So post-incident review is different from a problem. A problem within JSM is something that you create because it's either a major incident that really just can never happen again, or that is the hope, or a string of related incidents that might not be business critical or a global catastrophe per se, but something that you just don't want to see happen again. So in that case, if you're not using problems for this, you're just using post-incident reviews. This is a different kind of review where it's not the same problem category, but they can be attached to all of your incidents, and you can use them for every incident if you so desire. So let's create one. So I'm going to start one. Also, if I wanted to create any other tickets here, also you just go up to the create button and click on create from here. Then you pick your project or space and then create the work item that you're looking for. Okay, so for the create the PIR, we're going to do a couple of things here. Actually, I want to get out of there. Keep that there. Let's do another one. Okay, so I'm going to go investigate billing incident. And now I can click on my components here if I have any. In this case, I'm going to click on my billing services, and I'm just going to put this stems from the recent billing incident. And obviously, you're going to put more detail in here, but this is really just for the demo purposes webinar here. So I can also add my linked items in here. I can also have an automation rule written so that for every incident that is resolved, a PIR is then automatically created, or the PIR can even be created right at the time of the incident creation itself as well. And now here I can add quite a few other things like approvers or labels, organizations, affected services, hardware, etc. And all of this can be completely configured to whatever your needs happen to be as well. And then I would just create that, and then it's going to create this new PIR that's going to show up in this little area here. And now I can also assign these different teams. And once I start doing that, they're going to get notified either through SMS, through email, through Teams or Slack as well. Lots of different ways to make sure that our teams are being notified so they can start doing some research into what exactly was the root cause of this, how can we prevent it from happening again, etc. But it's just a different kind of task within JSM. Okay, let's get out of the PIRs and let's talk about teams. So we already talked about how we ingest incidents through the portal or through the help desk, the greater help desk, and even through email. But another way to ingest incidents or create those incidents is through the use of teams and operations. So Atlassian really utilizes the concept of teams throughout most of its products. and rightly so, because oftentimes most customers will have a platform of related Atlassian tools. So keeping the teams the same throughout is going to be important just for continuity and unity in general. So when we get to our teams here and we get to that area by, I'm just going to go down here and show you where we find that. At the very bottom, it should be your teams area. And you can also customize this sidebar if you want to move it up if you need to. Close that out. And so when we get to our teams, I'm just going to click on this so we get to the actual front page of this. We're going to see our For You page, which is going to give me my teams, anybody that I happen to be, a team that I happen to be a part of, recommended robo agents as well, departments, etc. You can really add quite a few different pieces of information down here. But I'm going to click on teams. And now I can see that there are quite a few different teams here. And I can also sort by teams that I may happen to be a part of. In this case, I'm not part of one, so we're not going to take a look at that. But now I can see all the teams that are available here. In this case, I'm going to click on Front End Wizards. Okay, so now that we have these teams, what we do is we make sure we have the right agents, licensed agents within these teams, and then we assign these teams to different services or applications within Jira Service Management. These teams are typically going to be responder teams. Sometimes you might have a developer or two who might also be an agent. Really, it's going to depend on your particular company culture and the different roles that you have. When you're within the teams area here, there's a couple of things you can see, including the agents down here if you're utilizing that. On the far right, you can see links to the different projects they might be part of. And then you can also get into operations here. So I'm going to click on operations. Okay, now I can see this operations area here that is specific to this team. I can also pick on additional teams if I want to, but I can only see one overview per team in operation. I mentioned escalation policies previously, and this is what I was talking about here. So for front-end wizards, for the services that they are aligned with, then these are the kinds of notifications that they're going to get based on this time frame. And this is really easy to create as well. If I wanted to edit this, it's all just plug and play. So it's really just choosing your rules, choosing the time, users, members, etc. And then you can also choose to do things like repeat the escalations if you want to. Really, really easy to configure all of these as well. And then I can find the individual pieces that relate back to my front-end wizards area. But what I want to focus on right now is the automation piece here. So there is automation in a number of different areas within JSM. The main area being in the project settings, which is going to be specific to your particular space or workspace in JSM. But if you want to do things like create incidents because an alert came in, you're going to need to do it through this automation here, because alerts specifically are tied directly to your team. So if you're utilizing the operations area within JSM, and I highly recommend that you do, you will need to set up these teams and then make sure that they are associated with the different applications and services within your service management environment. So let's take a look at what I mean by automation. So I can create automations right here. Okay, so now we get to automation. And if you're new to JSM, automation is made of three things. Triggers, the thing that makes the automation rule come to life, the conditions or components between the triggers, and then the actual actions that we need to take. So for here, we can see this is the add a trigger here. In this case, when it comes to front-end wizards and just team automation in general through the operations area, and this is the only place that you're going to find these particular options, by the way. You're not going to find them in your global automation area. But in this case, I'm going to go ahead and click on alert created. So that's going to be my main trigger. And then I'm going to add a component here. So let's say I'm going to add an if or then. It's going to be an alert field. And I'm going to say priority equals, let's just say P4. And we can also choose any other field that is currently configured in our alerts as well, such as entity, extra properties, message, etc. Click on next. Now I have my component, and now I need to add an action here. So I'm going to add this action. And in this case, I want to create an incident. So within the service area here, we can see a couple of different things. We can create a work item with a request type, or we can just go ahead straight and create an incident. And now I'm going to click on my service project, in this case, IT operations. And then I can do quite a few other things. So I can add additional components in here, by the way. Doesn't just have to be this one. It could be a number of different things have to match before we start creating this incident. But in this case, we're just going to leave it general so you can see what I'm doing. So for the incident type, it's going to be a report a system issue. And then you can choose the field to set here. And you can use smart values so that it's going to bring over anything that's within that smart value, which is really just a field. But in this case, I'm going to go ahead and say, I'm going to keep that the way it is. I'm going to copy over the summary line from the alert itself. And I'm actually going to copy over any descriptive text that's currently in that alert. And then I'm going to also copy over any affected services. And then I can just continue going. I can also use JSON objects in here. Pardon me. JSON objects if I wanted to add more additional fields to this particular incident that I'm creating. At the very bottom here, I can do if an alert triggers the rule, link the alert with the incident. So I don't actually have to put in a condition where it links the two. It's going to do this automatically for me. And then I can say, don't create a new incident if the action has already created an open incident of the same type in that project. So, and that really should be self-explanatory there. So I'm going to click on this. And I'm actually going to go back to my rule details because I need to add a name here. So I'm going to say webinar rule. I'm going to leave the description as is for right now. Typically, your automation rules are probably going to be self-explanatory for the most part. And I'm going to leave this the way it is. So I'm going to let everybody, like an admin, go ahead and do the edit for that. And then I'm going to turn on the rule. And so now the next time when an alert is created, that happens to be a P4, it's going to create this incident in IT operations. We're going to test that right now. I'm going to go into my operations. I'm going to go into my alerts, view all. We can actually see that one is completed right there, but let's do another one. All right, so I'm going to, let's see, 1, 2, 3, the low is 4. So we're going to go P4 alert test. And we'll put in front end wizards. We're going to just put in demo for the tag. I'm going to leave the alias and entity out of that. If you'd like to know more about that, Atlassian has a ton of information within their community as well. So click on create. And we'll see if this works. So I'm going to click on P4 alert test. And now what I'm going to do is go back to my incidents, my projects. There they are. And we'll see if this worked. And it did. Excellent. Okay, so I'm going to open this up. And this is now my created incident. We can see right here that this happens to be the system incident item, work item type. And if I go down to the far right here, we can see there's a linked alert here. So I don't have to worry about having the links show up in the middle context here, because sometimes that can muddy up the issue type itself. You're trying to concentrate on the context area. But now I can see that there happens to be a linked alert here, and I can then also get to that alert if I need to. So very simple automation. I'm assuming that your automation rules will be much more complex than that. But if you're looking for the create an incident upon alert, that's where you're going to find the automation is through Teams. And Teams works hand in hand with operations. So we're getting towards, let's see, 11:41 now. So let's kind of breeze through operations. So operations is meant for alert ingestion and many other items as well. So let's go into operations. We'll take a look at our options here. I'm going to click on general configuration. And these are really all the administrative options that I have from the back end of operations. So we use operations to ingest alerts. We ingest alerts through the concept of integrations. And actually, I'm going to get out of this, put this up right here. So integrations is a connection between your alert or service, your monitoring service sometimes. Maybe all of your alerts are going to go through a specific monitoring service like Datadog or Dynatrace, etc. Let's create a brand new one though, just to show how easy it is to configure these. And most of the time when it comes to a JSM implementation, we will set up the first handful or guide you through setting up the first handful of incidents or of alert integrations, and then you can easily do the rest. So for example, let's click on one of these down here. How about CodeShip? So I'm going to click on webinar integration and click on the assignee team. Click continue. Okay. So up here, although it's not expanded, this is really the most important piece here, and that is the steps to configure that integration. This is going to give you the steps from start to finish on how to set these integrations up. So now when I turn this on and create this integration, then I can also before I even do that, I can create incoming rules to create and process these alerts as well. So I can also do incoming as well as outgoing, depending on the kind of integration it is. So some of these will have both incoming and outgoing if you have a bidirectional sync, or if you're sending information back, like let's say Dynatrace or Datadog, but lots of different options here. And again, this is really, really easy to set up. You rarely are going to need more than a couple minutes help from us to do that. Let me go ahead and close this out. Go back to our list here. So for example, the Dynatrace, as we can see right here, has some incoming rules that we've already set up. So this is going to create this alert if XYZ happens. It'll close it if XYZ happens. In this case, yeah, I think it's pretty just general. We're just looking for the different smart tags here to see what's available to us. And then you can also acknowledge that alert and then add notes to the alerts as well. So once the integrations are set up, then the alerts are going to start actually getting created. We saw what one looked like previously. And then from there, your automation can really take hold of that. Once the alert comes in, you can either manually triage it, or you can also have an automation rule, just create an incident like we saw previously. But operations is really important because if you're not utilizing operations, then there's going to be quite a few different things that you're missing out on from an alert perspective. You can also save on licensing by ditching some of your other products that you might be utilizing for alert ingestion and just use it within the tool that you've already purchased or hopefully will purchase soon in the future. A couple of things to note when it comes to the operations area are heartbeat. This is my favorite feature of operations other than just operations itself, which is I can set up something proactive as opposed to being solely reactive when it comes to alert management. So I can set up a heartbeat that will give me a ping for any number of alerts that I set up within the tool itself. And as long as I'm receiving that heartbeat, it can be anywhere from 2 minutes to every day, every hour. Really, it's just going to depend on how critical that is for you to be informed that everything is well. But as long as I continue to receive those heartbeats, then everything's fine. And I don't have to worry about any incoming alerts, hopefully from that service. However, if I start to miss a heartbeat or two, then I can instantly let people know, my responder team know by creating a ticket. I can also create a ticket automatically when I start to miss things like that, so that a responder team starts to go and investigate it before an alert even comes in or before an incident is created by someone from either your internal or external client population. This gives you a really good opportunity to be as proactive as possible to minimize or even prevent a full alert or incident from taking place. So if you're utilizing operations, really take advantage of the heartbeat functionality. There is no additional cost for this or anything within operations of note. So get to know heartbeats, utilize them for every alert that you have. It will help you be more proactive there for sure. Okay, so when it comes to operations works hand in hand with teams to help with your incident management piece. And you can also utilize Rovo for this as well. So I'm going to go back into the billing is down here. We're going to take a look at an agent that we can utilize for this. So we can see the accelerate incident resolution with the ops guide. So this can also work hand in hand with your playbook, but I suggest training your agents to use both. So you're going to, if you're utilizing AI and you're utilizing Rovo, you're going to click on chat with an ops guide. So I'm going to minimize that left-hand navigational area here because I want to see more about what's available to me here. So with the operations guide, this is something that's created directly in the tool itself. You don't need to do anything to it, although you can certainly create additional agents for multiple tasks within incidents, operations, service requests, and every ITSM category. But here we see three options right away. So I can say, help me resolve an incident, and then this will search my entire JSM area and portal for history in terms of what's happening. I can also do things like create a post-incident review right from here. And then I can also check to see if there are any ongoing incidents, if I'm not also looking at any related resources that might be, again, related to this. This related resources panel will also utilize AI, or you can just go ahead and use Rovo and the agent that's already here as well. So if I click on help me resolve an incident, it's going to go look for past related incidents and then look for the different steps that were taken to pass it through to its resolution, basically. So you can see that a lot of grant, and it's also going to give you the people here, which I really appreciate. So if I have a question about an action that a previous agent has taken, I can know who it is and then easily contact them to ask them more questions. So this is going to say, okay, for Alana Grant, this is what they did for the admin administrator or administrator. They also went through this and then created, let's say, a PIR for a billing outage postmortem, and we can see what that looks like. So PIR is going to be also in Confluence here, and you can see a different executive summary, a postmortem report, etc. All of this information can live in Confluence so that if you have, let's say, stakeholders or people involved with these different products that don't have a JSM license, they can still go right to Confluence and see all the information that was at issue with that particular incident. So they don't have to have a license in JSM to get all of this really important narrative so that they can help and assist with preventing future incidents of the same kind, or just to get information if they're doing a write-up of some kind, or trying to learn about how we do incident management within our particular environment. Within Rovo, there are also quite a few other agents that you can utilize too. So things like product requirements for more JS or Jira software. But if I put in service, just the word service here, we can see a couple of things like service triage. So all of these agents are already created. You can certainly create more agents yourself. You could even use Rovo to help you create new agents and to give you step-by-step guides on how to do that. But in this case, let's say I want to see the service triage. So I can do things like suggest a priority for this issue. I can triage a number of different incidents here. I can also utilize triage within the alerting area as well, utilizing AI. And then I can get more information like how do I automate triage and how does that work? So it doesn't just give you steps to do, but it will explain what the steps are and why they're adding them to this list here as well. So definitely want to take a look at more Rovo agents in the next webinar as well. And we also have a Guinness Book of World Record now with Rovo. We had the largest software training class. I think we had a little over 510 people. So all at the same time, we did a full hour of Rovo training. Highly recommend you check that out. I believe that should be on our YouTube channel. If not, please drop me a line. I'll get you a link for that as well. That is a full hour of training. There's no salesy anything attached to that. It's just going to show you start to finish how we create multiple Rovo agents for different use cases within JSM. So really nice feature. It's really nice to see Atlassian their offerings for AI. They are truly helpful. You can do a lot of proactive work with these agents as well. And now creating an agent can require a little bit of code. It's very low code. And again, even an Atlassian administrator can create those agents as well. You do not need a developer for anything within JSM proper. Okay, so we are now at 10 minutes till. Let's just quickly cover assets. Again, in case no one knows, Atlassian made an announcement. If you are on the enterprise tier, you now get 500,000 assets for free within the tool, within your global instance. If you're on premium, then you do get 50,000 still. But over the 500,000 mark within enterprise, you will pay, I think it's from anywhere from 3 to 2 cents based on this and how much you scale up in terms of the number of assets. But it's a really nice bump for those who are in enterprise too. It's a nice cost reduction there. Within assets, you can also utilize automation, and I highly recommend that you do so for things like lifecycle management. So let's say for IT employee assets, and very quickly, assets are made of three things: object schemas, the object themselves, and then the attributes that provide more information about that particular object. Also, you can have objects as attributes, And I really quickly want to show the laptops here. So when we go, I think I mentioned previously in the virtual agent at the very top of the webinar that you can utilize that webinar to get more information and disseminate more information too. So within the laptop model itself, let's go to the laptop model. Sorry, let me go to the support one here. A couple things you can see, like target roles. So if I were a senior developer and I asked that virtual agent intent, which models do I have access to? I can then have that virtual agent utilize an automation rule that will spit this out back at me. So I can see I get to use these particular models here, or maybe it just might be one or two. But this is the kind of thing I'm talking about. Virtual agents can really help disseminate so much more information, even just from a knowledge-based standpoint, as opposed to taking an actual action within that. But this is a really good way to utilize lifecycle management and to disseminate information. So these target roles, these are also objects themselves. So if I click on that, I can see the details of this. I can also see the linked objects to this particular object, both outbound and inbound. And I can even see an object graph for this as well. This is going to show me everything that's currently related to this senior developer role, including people, the hardware that's associated, additional collateral and artifacts for this, different services that might be related to this, etc. So much you can do utilizing both incident management, operations, and asset objects as well. And one thing also to note is you do get a taste of Atlassian analytics here in terms of the reporting itself. So I want to create a report. Let's do objects by attribute. I'm going to use that template there. Oops, let's do one more. Report. So if you don't have enterprise, you do get Atlassian analytics in two different areas, both in the operations area as well as asset management. These are called controls here up at the top, which are really just kind of filters. I'm going to click on IT employee assets. It'll take just a minute here and click on my object types. And now I'm going to go to supported laptops. And then I'm going to choose the attribute that I want to see represented in this graph here. Just a moment. This is utilizing a data lake that's on the back end that cannot be configured, but the data lake basically has everything in your asset area here. Let me choose one. There we go. Okay, so I want to go status here. And then in just a second, this will show me what's available. And the status is for each of the supported laptops that I chose in this control here. Okay, so I can see that there are 3 objects with an active status and that there is 1 object that is in inactive or retired status. So again, more things that I can see with Atlassian Analytics here, but this does give you a taste. And I can also save this as a specific report as well. And I can also export this. So I can export this in a number of different ways, these 3 options here. And then I can also schedule a subscription for this, which is also a really nice thing to have. So I can just get that dump right into my email whenever I'm wanting to. Okay, and this really brings us to time here. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen, and we're going to see how many questions we have. We've also added some links in our chat area here. So let me go into the chat and the questions. See if there are any questions here. Q&A, open, no questions. And no questions at all. Okay, I'll give everybody just a minute in case you do have a question, and then I will answer it. Otherwise, you are free to go about your day. Hope you have a wonderful rest of your week. And thank you so much for attending this webinar. I really appreciate it. Definitely sign up for the Willy Wonka webinar coming up in November. It should be interesting. We're going to talk about the service collection as a whole. We'll be taking a look at the customer service management piece that's now new and available in JSM, as well as digging deeply into data manager as well. I'm really excited to show that. So learning about that has been a lot of fun. Adapters and jobs and how they work and how we can cleanse and analyze that data and then put it right into our CMDB is a really nice feature and one we've been waiting for quite a while. So, okay, let's just see if there's anything else here. Also within the webinar chat is my email address as well as my LinkedIn. Please feel free to send me an invite. Be happy to connect with you. And we can also talk through LinkedIn as well. Also, we have our Valiantys training link here, our YouTube channel, the Rovo Guinness World Record recording for Rovo training at the very top. Thank you so much, Kristen. And as well as our Valiantys events and webinars. Okay, just give one more minute here and see if there's any questions. Okay, doesn't look like there are any questions, and it looks like our participants are starting to drop off of it. Thank you so much again for your time today. Really appreciate it. And if you have any questions at all about JSM or any Atlassian product, please don't hesitate to drop me a line, and I promise I'll get right back to you. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.